Welcome to the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast, fueled by Raphael's Roastery and supported by you. Connect to us on socials or dawnandsteveplus.com.
You've done this before.
First time.
Well, Tim Lovelace is Lovelace.
Yeah.
Right? Tim
Right.
Lovelace with us in the studio here. Glad you're here for Dawn and Steve Plus. And Tim is a Grammy and Dove Award nominee. Yeah, I thought this was cool. Billboard Top 5 Comedian.
That's what they say.
That's what they tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you could combine music and comedy and make a living at that?
Well, I'll try to make it short, Steve, but basically, I just always loved music, but I would cut up at school. I was kind of the class clown at school, but I deeply loved music, all the styles, different instruments. I was just amazed as a child that whether I was in church, if I heard one lady play Amazing Grace and then 3 weeks later someone else played the same song, I was amazed that no two people play alike. So I was amazed with different styles, but how everyone has their own touch. So music and lyrics just blew me away at an early age.
And was there a style that you tended to gravitate towards?
That's really hard. I was influenced. I had a little radio, the little 9.
Oh, yeah.
The little small transistor radio with a little earpiece that was really just a rock onto a cord, right? Yep. And go up and into my little tree house, which is more like just 4 boards balancing up in an oak tree. The neighbor kids would say, "This is not a tree house. We're about to fall out of it," because I didn't use nails. I was way ahead of my time. I was tree friendly.
Yep.
But I could call this little radio station, and there was a radio station in Mobile, Alabama. I lived north of there, and I say UCLA, the upper corner of lower Alabama, Badum Ching, and they would play everything. So I loved that because it could be a gospel quartet like the Florida Boys, and turn around the very next song was Glenn Campbell, and the next thing was Johnny Cash, and the next thing was maybe Dear Heart, Andy Williams, and so. And my family, although they loved gospel and, we went to church and I was raised listening to the Statesmen and Blackwood Brothers and all of that, we still around the house, we listened to Leontine Price and opera and jazz and Pete Fountain and a little bit of everything. So it's kind of hard to, I just loved music and the different sounds and then I was, like I said, the class clown in school.
Well, I see how, and watching some of your videos online, I see how you have taken the love of music and the love of comedy and put those together. And if you want to find out more about Tim, we've got the link in the show notes. But you mentioned growing up going to church. Mm-hmm. At what point did it change from just simply going to church to actually understanding that there was a God who actually cared for Tim?
Well, and I would think that would almost be like the last music question, layered. Like I fell in love with the stories as a kid, fascinated. I still tell stories more than just stand-up comedy. I love stories, and I've always said that Jesus was the best at everything. So when he told a story, he's the best storyteller that's ever lived. And it's hard for me to say someone's the best storyteller and I can't say it myself. That didn't work very good. But I love the stories, if they were talking about Daniel in the lion's den. I mean, it amazed me. I believed it, but I was just learning about Jesus.
Yeah.
I love the music and I love the stories, and I believe that our pastor loved this man, but I hadn't met him yet.
Sure.
And I remember the pastor a lot of times, Brother Ennis, they called him. He would talk about Jesus being his very best friend. And sometimes he would weep and say, just what a great friend. I was thinking, well, here are these stories as a kid, and that's neat, but how was he actually his best friend,
Yeah.
Well, they talk about salvation, but I just couldn't put the two together. And so it was a series of different things, when you commit to the Lord, you commit to reading His Word, but when I often say, and this is going to sound very cliche, but for me it was like when I touched the hem of His garment, that's when everything changed. When I actually met Him,
Yeah.
then.
Remember when that was?
Yep.
You have a moment in mind?
I don't remember the day or the month or the year, but I know it was when everything changed. And I've also told people that when I met him, truly met Jesus, that's when music was no longer my life. It was part of my life.
Yeah.
And he was in the middle of the music, but it was not music as my life. You know, all I want to do is music.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you know, if you're a missionary, if you're mowing grass, I mean, it's just best to be close to him and let him become your friend.
And so as he becomes your friend,
Right.
and as music is no longer the number one priority, but still an important part of your life, what did that look like early on in your walk with him to realize that he was still going to let you do music? You're still going to be able to bring comedy and things into that. How did all of that kind of work together, you think, to form your faith?
Well, I early on I was playing in a recording studio in Mobile, Alabama, and did everything I could, like most starving musicians, do everything you can.
Yep. You take all the gigs.
To be around it, you know. And my uncle had taught me the piano trade, how to tune at an early age. And I had two uncles, actually, that tuned, and they tuned for some great people. And so then I was blessed. I don't say it's braggingly, but once I learned how to tune, I was working some with a music store. I got to tune for some really neat people, Liberace and Ray Charles and a whole bunch of really cool people.
Wow.
And but during that time, I would like work a day at the music store and tune pianos. I'd work at the studio. It wasn't quite enough to be a 5-day-a-week job. You know, we'd have a couple of albums that are going to be cut that week and maybe a couple of jingles and whatever, and I would tune in between, and I would do the studio work, and I'd play in a gospel group on the weekend. And so then I played with a couple of groups. So I played with a quartet years ago. I played with them almost 9 years on the road. And so during that time, I didn't set out, Steve. I didn't set out to be a comedian. I was just always a little different, you know,
Sure.
And I can tell right away, you and I are double first cousins, twice removed. You've got a lot of that in you, too. You know what I mean? We just kind of look at it a little differently and like to have a good time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times the quartet would use me on something for comedy without me saying, hey, can I do something? They were like, hey, why don't you bring a banjo and we'll do like a banjo solo, and then they'd do a little comedy routine with it, and I'm just like, I'm just playing music and I'm happy, you know, and so that would kind of keep going, and then Bill Gaither, in his early videos, he wanted me to do a little comedy bit. He had asked Jake Hess, his friend, who could do something kind of off the cuff, and so Jake told him that, you know, I could ad lib, which is another way of saying I can mess something up in a hurry. So Bill asked me to mess up a song, but not to tell anyone about it. So he lined it up. We didn't practice, and anyway, I'm just playing in a group and just loving music and songwriting and just loving, you know, the journey of music. And then all of a sudden, when I'm on this video, that was back in about the middle 90s, 93, 4, somewhere in there. Then a lot of people saw that because they were like going platinum or whatever. A lot of people that saw that, even overseas and in places, they didn't know I was a musician. They just saw comedy. So they're just like, can you come and do a comedy show at, you know, or can you do something for our youth group? Can you do something for Pastor's Appreciation? Can you do, you know, different little, you know, then all of a sudden it kept opening to do like a Christian college or sometimes a secular college, and then started corporate work and country and different things. But the whole time God was setting me up where I could go and have laughter, and then I could tell them about real joy in the Lord. Yeah. And so it just kind of, it was his purpose, not my goal. Yeah.
Well, cool to see how he has orchestrated your steps in your career, and certainly a part of that, you know, was not just the tuning of pianos and the performing, but a lot of writing, and you've written for some very big names in Southern gospel music. Is there a part of the industry, a part that you enjoy more than the other? Like, how's the writing versus the performing? Is there something that like really gets you excited?
You know, yeah, I would say I love all of it. I really do love life. I mean, Lord has blessed me. He is so good. I have such a wonderful family, and love my wife and girls, and just really blessed. So I love what I do. I love to songwrite. I love to play. I love to be with other musicians. But I would say, yeah, the number one thing for me at this point in my life is if I do a concert, we have fun and laugh and still have the spiritual applications, is afterwards or before talking with people. If somebody, a sweet little lady said one time in a concert, I was in Canada, St. Catherine's College, and she came back, and there were all ages there, from college students or all ages, opened up the concert. So there's all the generations, and I'm back at the product table and was over with and talking with people, and this little lady, I thought she fainted. She just kind of collapsed at the end of the table, and I went to grab her. I thought, knee-jerk was, right? She's fainted, and I'm going to be in a lawsuit here. She tripped over the cloth, the tablecloth. Now, I didn't know, but I thought she fainted, Steve. And when I kind of helped her, and she picked her head up, she was weeping. And she said, "Tonight, I let go of what happened to me as a child so many years ago."
Wow.
And so sometimes when I see a teenager, maybe they've been to a funeral of a family member, I see someone that's lost someone, and someone that's going through cancer, someone that buried a husband a year or two ago, and they say, "I really needed this." I already know the Lord a lot of times. I already know the Lord, but I needed to laugh. It took me a lot of years. Steve, for a long time, you kind of think of, let's have fun, then let's give them the quotes, a little serious part.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's have fun, and then we can, come down to this little moment and honestly tell them about the Lord. But it took a long time for me to realize that in the fun time, sometimes that's the ministry that hurting people need more than anything. They already know the Lord, but they needed to let go of the stress.
Yeah.
They needed to really give it to Him. They just needed to laugh. And laughter was not created by comedians. It was already in the heavenlies way before we were ever thought of, It's all that joy and everything comes from the Lord.
Well, and he seems to give certain people an extra little dose of that, and maybe a little extra spark of creativity and the ability to connect. And what I saw living in a coffee world is what's going on right now. I'm like, oh man, that connected, because I am a self-professed coffee addict.
I see the
and
cup.
So, right,
I see the cup.
Thanks to Raphael's Roastery for helping Don and Steve Plus, but links in the show notes. But Tim is
exactly. Shout out. Shameless shout out.
I cannot function without coffee, and based on what I've seen checking out your website and some of the videos, you seem to be a big coffee fan as well.
I had one. My wife and I had a coffee right before I got here, and so that's why I'm drinking water right now, because of my ADHD and the way I'm wired. I said I was born, I'm already like an Alabama squirrel on Red Bull. I don't need too much, or I would be. You'd have to tape it and then transcribe it later, see what I said. So that's why I'm drinking water right now. But absolutely love coffee.
Yeah. So when you sit down to write a comedy bit, or you're kind of, the wheels are churning on a potential sketch or something that you're going to incorporate into a show, is there a way that you test it? Is there something like, how do you know when something's funny?
Well, a lot of comedians would go to, so I guess some still do, they'd go to like a comedy club and do it. And I don't, so I have to try to, a lot of times I test it out with my wife or my daughter Gabrielle first. I'll say something, if they kind of go, yeah, I know that's just already not
right. That's a no.
Because my wife has a great sense of humor, and she has a dry humor, but she still is good at it. But I'll kind of test something out with them, and I'll tell them, okay, here's just the concept. I don't have it yet, the big C, and talk about it. But they say with comedy or with music or anything, you can kind of sandwich it. If you feel like, of course, everything I do is crystal clean. I'm not going to like go, oh, is this going to work? Is this too edgy? I don't go there. I don't believe in off-color humor.
Yeah.
But as far as the joke itself working, you can sandwich it. If you're starting with something that is comfortable and you can go ahead and do a little mic check while you're at it and check it all out, you're real comfortable, then you can kind of squeeze in that little joke there, and most of the time the audience lets you know right away. And sometimes you think, boy, this will work good, and it falls flat, but you immediately come back with something that works, and, and then you take that one to the to the shredder.
That never sees the light of day again. As I think about what your work must entail, I would think the creativity, the fun, the passion of being able to bring that out to an audience and watch that instantaneous response and feedback has got to be a lot of fun. Music, when you're going into the studio, not necessarily the instantaneous feedback,
right?
But there's a song that you just very recently have released and is out. The Celebration of America medley.
Okay. Yeah.
I know, newly out. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration for this song.
Well, I just finished recording, and they have the pre-release of the album. It's called A Different Note, which I'm different, so it worked out great, the title they had for it. But it's just songs that mean a lot to me. The record company I'm with is Stowtown Records. They do a great job. I love the roster and the lineup and the team and the family atmosphere. And Landon Beam, one of the owners, said that he wanted to do a full-blown piano project. So I do 2 or 3 things normally in the concert, but I'm like, okay, because I'm always, thinking more like we cut a comedy song, another comedy song, and then we had that project, Living in a Coffee World. But they wanted to, he said, I want to do, a full-blown piano project, and we'll get Wayne Hahn, do the orchestration and then horns on some of them. And so they gave me the liberty to pick out the songs that I wanted. But he did ask for a medley of praise music and a medley of patriotic, if I would do that. And I said I'd be more than glad to, because I love our country, and we can have bumps in the road, but I believe there's a lot more good than bad. And I love our country, and I appreciate our servicemen and women, and that huge sacrifice, and some of them make the ultimate sacrifice just for us. So I was able to just pick out the songs that I wanted to, and then put them in whatever keys, whatever section I wanted, whatever modulation, and then Wayne comes in on top of it, and all of a sudden there's, the viola and the strings and the horns, and I go, so it's been really fun, and they're releasing that, and so from July the 4th, people can listen to that, and a celebration of America, because, as you know, we're coming up on 250 years as a nation.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff that Tim has available. And again, we'll put the link to his website in the show notes. So I encourage you to check that out. I see you're going to be heading out on the road here shortly. You got
I stay on the road.
Little bit of
quite a bit.
Not just a summer tour, but it goes on.
Yeah, just keep going. Right.
So what's your favorite part of being out on the road?
Meeting different people, different cultures, everything. Just really, as I say a lot of times, getting to actually see America. Yeah. And I see a lot of good. And I love, because comedy, as you know, Steve, comedy is universal. Because people listening this podcast, you can have people of all different faiths. Mm-hmm. You can have people maybe that haven't met the Lord yet, but people that are Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal, doesn't matter, but all different faiths. And then you get a room, get 100 people. What's your favorite singer? Almost 100 different answers. Yeah. What's your favorite style of gospel music? Southern, bluegrass, CCM, I listen to K-Love, whatever. Comedy, universal.
Yeah.
So that's why you get to go places outside of, you're not just playing just there's nothing wrong with being a CCM artist, mostly playing CCM,
Yep.
venues, Southern gospel, but comedy. So I love that because I can be, at a fine arts center in a huge town, and the very next day I'm in rural America, or I'm at a,
Is there a place that you have not played yet that you want to play?
I'm going to play a place that I'm really looking forward to. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not for next year, am I? Yeah. So they're going to have me along with a great roster of people. I think Taranda Green, Wintley Phipps, and who else?
Can sing, yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sure. It's a great line, but it's going to be at the Kennedy Center next year, and for the 250th anniversary. And I just played. I'm looking at my wife and publicist both over here,
Yeah.
the two girls that know a whole lot more than I do. And I just played 2 weeks ago in Texas. Where? At Prestonwood Baptist Church.
That tiny little church there?
That tiny little church.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think their choir, or some of their choir, will also be singing there at the Kennedy Center. And so I'm looking forward to that because I've never played the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Well, I would imagine for someone who has the opportunity to be on a stage and to perform for audiences, the Kennedy Center has got to be just one of those places.
And when they have that 9-foot grand, I have a feeling it's going to be tuned.
I think so. If not,
sneaking suspicion. If not, I'll carry my tuning
you got
hammer
your
with me.
Okay, there we go.
And then leave a bill on top of it when I walk. Yeah.
Well, Tim Lovelace with us today, and Tim, so appreciate you stopping by the studio and have the opportunity to meet you.
I appreciate everything you all do, and just want everybody, when they're to check out my schedule, because I literally go all over the place, and so
he does,
and so they can come out when I'm going to be in the area, because yeah.
TimLovelace.com. But if you forget that, the link is in the show notes. Hope that you'll check it out.
Thanks for joining us for the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast. We're a listener-supported, non-profit podcast, and we're grateful for your generous support. You can give at dawnandsteveplus.com. Our producer is yours truly, Stephen Briggs, with assistance from Chris Westmoreland. Please like and subscribe to Dawn and Steve Plus anywhere you get your podcasts and on all our socials. Links to what we talk about and to Raphael's Roastery are in the show notes below. Thanks for joining us and being our plus one.